will elect a pro-marriage parliament in the next federal election!
The people you've worked with on issues are now distancing themselves from you.
It's based on the idea that in order to be electable, you need to downplay your connection to social conservative organizations.
I don't want to be hurt anymore, to be killed, so I run.
Justice demands that you have an appeal process. Nobody is infallible.
We will elect a pro-marriage parliament in the next federal election! God bless you all and God save marriage.
Reverend Tristan Emanuel has an agenda for the federal election to help elect right-wing candidates to Parliament. He's started a movement to do just that, equipping Christians for the public square. It's an awkward name, but the goals are clear.
Those goals are, first of all, to raise the level, the visibility of sincere religious individuals in Canada, primarily evangelicals and social conservative Roman Catholics. It's my contention that they are a significant voting bloc in Canada.
But evangelical links have hurt previous conservative campaigns, something Stephen Harper wants to avoid.
The evangelical community does have an image problem. I think it's an image that's primarily been placed upon them by others. And yet, you know, the evangelical community is not without its own deficiencies.
The gay marriage fight has been Emanuel's best recruiting tool. The controversy has drawn members to his movement.
The good behind that is, that stirred up the evangelical community, like no other issue has in a long time.
Last summer was a busy time for Emanuel. He was a key organizer behind several large protests. 5,000 turned out at Toronto's Queen's Park. 15,000 marched on Parliament Hill, all opposing gay marriage.
You've changed your views about human sexuality, Mr. Martin? That's your business. But don't think you can unilaterally impose your secular views about what does and does not constitute a human right and what does and does not constitute a marriage.
Speaker after speaker denounced gay marriage. One of them was Jim Flaherty. He's a staunch conservative and was Mike Harris's deputy premier.
For 10 years now, I support the traditional definition of marriage of one man and one woman.
Flaherty is now running federally for the Conservatives. He's a star candidate in a crucial Ontario riding. Like Flaherty, Emanuel is focused on the federal election. He sees 3 million evangelicals as a powerful voting bloc.
I want to say to Canadians, 3 million people is nothing to sneeze at, especially in a nation that only could boast of maybe 30 million people, where only 60% of them actually can vote, and where only 60% do vote. We're no longer a marginal voting bloc in the body politic of Canada.
Emanuel wants to be a kingmaker. He thinks he can help elect right-wing candidates.
And calling on the Liberals to fire their pollster. Going there and doing some grassroots mobilizing, phone campaign, town hall rallies, those kinds of things, get the vote out. That's important and imperative, identifying the vote and getting the vote out.
For Emanuel, the election starts here, with an old-fashioned town hall-style meeting.
Just start having people sit down, because you know how these events go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we have got people 13 different panelists. We need to manage the time,
Move.
keep it flowing,
okay.
Right? And there goes my cell phone.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Hello.
This is Ignite Our Culture. It's part political rally, part strategy session. Emanuel has rented a large hall.
Peter, right?
He's flown in speakers from across North America. He's even hired a television crew. About 100 people attend the event, mostly pro-lifers and anti-gay marriage crusaders. They've come to learn strategies from veteran activists, people like self-proclaimed former homosexual Stephen Bennett.
But I chose to engage in that behavior. Listen, no one put that guy in the bed with me. No one put the coke up my nose. No one put the bottle up to me. I made that choice.
For Emanuel, this is a cultural battle. He's militantly anti-gay, on religious grounds, naturally.
There is a sense in which, because the media is focused on that message of mine, that there seems to be a perception that I have this vendetta with homosexual people. That's not the case. What I'm deeply concerned about is the suppression of the dialogue and the debate.
For Emmanuel, the problem isn't the message, it's the medium.
One of the deficiencies that has led to the image problem is that we really haven't been very good at promoting our message.
So Emmanuel is going digital. Eye-catching graphics, DVDs, webcasting, even podcasts. They're all part of his strategy. Just in time for the federal election, the campaign is now in full swing. The Conservatives have reopened the gay marriage controversy. If Stephen Harper wins, he'll hold a free vote.
For us in the organization, the ECP Center, it's great. It just sort of crystallizes the point that everything we've done up until this point was not fruitless, that it's had its impact.
But Emmanuel's plans have fallen apart. He's been told he's not welcome on the campaign. Candidates won't be seen with him. He's something of a liability.
The people you've worked with on issues are now distancing themselves from you.
Well, you know what? I knew that coming into this. This is a strategic positioning, and again, it's based on the idea that in order to be electable, you need to downplay your connection to social conservative organizations. And I understood that, I knew that going into this. So from that standpoint, I'm not surprised.
A few months ago, Emmanuel had such ambitious goals.
We will elect a pro-marriage parliament in the next federal election!
Even so-called allies are distancing themselves. Remember Jim Flaherty, staunch opponent of gay marriage?
It's going very well. Good. It's going very well. We've got so much positive response, it's mind-boggling.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, so am I.
That's excellent. That's great.
Yeah.
Conservative hopes in Ontario are riding on Flaherty. The stakes are enormous. Flaherty and his party could both win, but not on the issue of same-sex marriage.
It sounds like it's not a huge priority to the voters that you're meeting.
That's right. It's not a huge priority. It is to some, to some, and it may determine how some vote. But I would think that if a candidate wanted to get elected in this riding on that issue, they'd have some trouble.
I asked Flaherty about his relationship with Tristan Emmanuel.
I know him as I know many other ministers and religious leaders, rabbis and priests and so on, and bishops, and he has his point of view, and he has his strengths and his weaknesses, no doubt, like we all do in our imperfections.
Reverend Emmanuel has told me that he's been asked not to publicly endorse candidates. Can you comment on that?
I've never heard that, and I've never asked him for an endorsement either. We never had that conversation.
Do you have any involvement with candidates?
No. These are membership drives, and we've basically distanced ourselves from that. In fact, the federal election, believe it or not, is probably, in that sense, a gift to us. It's giving us the ability to go out there and get members into the center. Our goal is 100,000, and we've just started.
How are you doing with the membership drive? Can you give me any numbers?
We're at about 4,000 now, give or take.
When you see the level of political influence that American evangelicals have, the Pat Robertsons, the Ralph Reeds, are you just a little bit jealous?
Am I a little bit jealous? We're a different country. Canadians are passive, by and large, right? Canadians have lived with this implicit trust with their government. I think that's one of the differences between Canadians and Americans. But I can work on my own.
The election is into its final days, and Emmanuel is now just a spectator. Stephen Harper's Conservatives are doing just fine without him. For 360 Vision, I'm Andrew Munger.
I'm Marianne Meade Ward. Want to know what the Holy Books say about politicians and elections? You might be surprised. My family would be right at home with the politics of Reverend Tristan Emmanuel. They're all evangelicals in the U.S. who consider it practically a Christian duty to vote for George W. Bush, a fellow born-again Christian. And they're quite horrified by Canada's support for same-sex marriage. So as you might guess, politics are kind of a no-fly zone at our family gatherings. There'd be too many fights, given that I don't support Bush or his politics, and I do support gay marriage. But the Bible doesn't say anything at all about our duty to vote. In fact, about the only thing it says about government is that we're supposed to pay taxes and obey our rulers, whoever they are, because they've been appointed by God. That's pretty harsh. I'm not sure what biblical literalists like Emmanuel do with those verses. Thankfully, I'm not a biblical literalist, and I see no need to obey rulers who are behaving badly. In this, Judaism and Islam are on my side. Both of them argue that God's law is higher than the laws of the land, and there's no duty to obey a sinful ruler. Islam goes even farther. There's a duty to overthrow corrupt governments, as the Prophet Muhammad himself did. He opposed rulers when he lived in Mecca, and then he set himself up as the head of state after his pilgrimage to Medina. The record in the Quran of these two periods essentially becomes the model for appropriate Muslim politics. Either you're in opposition to the government or basically running it. I don't have any quarrel with people of faith seeking public office, but I think that's most effective and honoring of your faith when you're trying to expand the rights of citizens, not contract them. Think of William Wilberforce using the British Parliament to end slavery. The worst religious excesses have occurred when religion is used to deprive others of their freedoms, as Reverend Emmanuel is seeking to do. But for most Canadians, same-sex marriage is just irrelevant. Only 6% of us regard this issue as a priority. Healthcare, the economy, honesty in government, and the environment are far more important. So what's your burning election issue as a person of faith? Give me a call at 1-888-321-2567 or send an email to 360vision@visiontv.ca. I'm Marianne Meade Ward.
Now, would you say you stand against your own party on this issue?
You know, it's not the first time I disagreed with a minister of my government. And yes, in this case, you know, I disagree with it totally.
Policy and in practicality, I'd like to call on the Honourable Andrew Telegdi to say a few words.
Thank you all for being here on a Friday night.
Liberal incumbent Andrew Telegdi is in a fight for his seat in Kitchener-Waterloo, and a fight for the rights of refugees, one refugee in particular, Mawa Diamonde.
I decided to run away because there is no point for me to stay where my life is not anymore secure.
She fled Ivory Coast and arrived in Canada in 2001, but Canada wants to deport her back to her homeland. Andrew Telegdi thinks she deserves better, even if his own party disagrees.
I'm a former refugee. I'm not going to, walk away from something because I think it's politically risky.
Telegdi is the chair of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. In 2004, the committee recommended that the government enact the Refugee Appeals Division. It would have given a rejected refugee claimant a second chance.
Justice demands that you have an appeal process. Nobody's infallible. No one judge is infallible.
But his government said no.
This is going to be an interesting campaign.
Telegdi's won the past 4 elections comfortably. This round, the immigration card looks to be an issue in this diverse riding. The 3 main political contenders were all born outside of Canada. Supporting the Refugee Appeals Division puts Telegdi at odds with his party, but he thinks it's worth the risk.
Sometimes if there's tension, so be it. To me, it's a very important issue that I feel very strongly about. So I will keep working on it.
That's good news for Mawa Diamonde. She wants to stay in Canada. She's been in Church Sanctuary in Ottawa since last June.
Why did I leave Ivory Coast? Because I was raped. Yeah. And I don't want to be hurt or to be hurt anymore, to be killed. So I ran.
But the one-person panel at Diamonde's refugee hearings did not believe her story. Immigration found too many inconsistencies in Diamonde's testimony. They ordered her deported.
Are you telling the truth?
It doesn't make me proud when I say I was raped. Why did I have to tell that I'm raped? I was raped. Did I get some prize? Yeah. Why?
Vous ferez cela en mémoire de moi. Et ne nous soumets pas à la tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal.
Diamondes joined the long line of refugees who have sought sanctuary in Canadian churches. Pierre Gauthier facilitated sanctuary for Diamonde at Sacré-Cœur Catholic Church after she was ordered deported. He's the coordinator of the Refugee Outreach Committee at a neighboring church.
What was it about this case that made you decide to take the risk?
Well, we felt that her life was threatened, and if she was returned to the Ivory Coast, she would probably end up being butchered somewhere.
Sacré-Cœur has welcomed and supported her, but she wants a Canadian passport.
I feel like I'm in jail, and I don't know why I'm in jail. In my understanding, when people are bad people, they kill, they steal, this is why they send them in jail. But me, I'm just claiming something, my safety, and I am in jail. I can't go out. 6 months, I can't see the sun.
November 2005. Andrew Telegdi joined 400 people at a candlelight vigil on Parliament Hill to support Diamonde. There were a few politicians at the vigil. Telegdi was the only Liberal MP.
Now, would you say you stand against your own party on this issue?
Well, it's not the first time I disagreed with a minister of my government, and yes, I think in this case, I disagree with it totally.
Isn't that politically risky, especially coming with an election coming up?
Well, we're dealing with somebody's life. Elections are elections. But when you got people involved where their life is at stake, where they could suffer great harm if they're returned, then I think, that takes a much higher priority.
Delegation meet me there.
Andrew Telegdi might persuade the government to implement the Refugee Appeals Division. The odds are against him. First, he'll have to win his seat again. If that happens, Mao Diamonde stands a better chance of staying in Canada. For 360 Vision, I'm Zan Aqueta.
Amazing grace. I believe that music at the end of life is very powerful for the person who's dying. Saved a wretch like me.
Homeless, rejected by society, taken to Christian homes in Northern Ontario, deprived, robbed, and believed murdered, missing in Muskoka, coming soon on 360 Vision. These are the last sounds many patients hear. Would dying be easier if it sounded like this? A musician in Port Perry, Ontario, has made it her life's work to find out.
I believe that music at the end of life is very powerful for the person who's dying. It can bring them calm and soothing in anxious moments.
Bev Foster has more experience with death than she would like. 6 years ago, her father was diagnosed with cancer. He had to go to hospital.
People's voices, beeping sounds, code calls. Hospitals sometimes can be noisy places, and so there really wasn't the peace and quiet of home.
So her family brought a piece of home to him.
Music has always been a big part of their lives. It changed the room.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. We were around his bedside, and we just began to sing those same hymns that we had played for years and years. It was the first time I saw how incredibly powerful music was in the very final moments, and how it, he actually tried to sing with us.
Her father died in 2002 in room 217 of the Uxbridge Cottage Hospital. It was then that Foster decided to put together a collection of music designed especially for people who were dying. She named the collection after her father's room, room 217.
I surveyed over 100 seniors that were 70 years plus and asked them if they had 1 month to live, what music would they like to listen to?
The result? A mix of religious music, classical, and contemporary, made especially for older listeners. The pace is deliberately slow, to match the rhythm of breathing.
What kind of response have you received?
Well, overall, it's been really favorable, and people are just delighted there's a resource that can be used. In a couple of occasions, we've had people who I think just don't get the concept.
That was discouraging, but didn't stop the project. Now Foster's music is used in a dozen hospitals in Canada.
She never liked that one because she had her tongue stuck out.
The 217 collection was offered to Joy Shaw. Her sister Anne was dying at the Grace Hospital in Toronto.
It had a soothing effect on Annie. This is... sometimes I would go in there and she would be very agitated.
There's a growing field of research that reveals the power of rhythm to heal and console. Amy Clements-Cortez has just finished a study on the benefits of music for the dying.
I think music helps because it allows clients to express emotions that are really too difficult to verbally speak about. It creates a very safe, comfortable environment where they feel that they can share those emotions.
I promised her that I wouldn't put her in a home.
Her sister had to go to hospital near the end, but music helped Shaw keep that promise, at least in spirit.
It was the peace and contentment that it was giving Annie. That's what I felt about it. And I think it made the end very peaceful. Really. I miss her so much. God.
When we've been there 10,000 years.
For 360 Vision, I'm Heidi Westfield.
Next week on 360 Vision, I'll be at this spiritual retreat speaking to a controversial bishop. He's Samuel Ruiz of Chiapas, Mexico. He works with the poor and the indigenous. He's also been called a spiritual revolutionary.